3, 2, 1. Welcome to another episode of Digital Voices. My name is Bo Tiffany. Today we have a special guest, Miss Heather Steiner. Heather contacted me. She wanted to talk about her story and share what's on her heart and what's on her mind. And to start with, she wanted to share what's been happening with her and her family because her father was recently incarcerated a few years ago, and the effects that that's had on both her family as well as her relationship with her father as well as the rest of the families. So Heather, I want to thank you for being a member of our episode today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me.
You are more than welcome. So tell me a little bit about your dad and tell me about you.
Yeah, so my dad, let's see, he is currently serving, I believe it's a 12-year sentence. I believe it is. And he's 4 years into that 12-year sentence. Before he went to prison, he was kind of in and out of my life. Growing up, he had addiction issues. My mom and dad split when I was about 7. I'm now 30, so it was just kind of who my dad was. I'd see him every other weekend. As a kid, my brother and I would go over there, and as an adult, I kind of gave him an ultimatum to either get his stuff together or he wasn't really going to be a part of my life. I got married and had kids, my first child at 23, and I stuck to that point. He was kind of in and out of my life, kind of depending on the stage he was in his addiction.
Sure.
I went over there a few times to his apartment with my daughter, and it was kind of on my terms. And he kind of never pushed that because he knew. But he did try to get sober a few times through the years. My family and I would try to get him to go to rehab or AA meetings, stuff like that. And he always had an addictive personality, always. When he was younger, he went to Lincoln Hills. He did all that. He was, I don't know, maybe 12 or 13 the first time he went.
And Lincoln Hills is a correctional facility for juveniles, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So he and my mom had me pretty young. So he had to grow up pretty fast, but he had a hard time growing up. So he's got about 5 kids now and is incarcerated. And it's funny because I didn't talk when I found out that he got incarcerated. I actually didn't think anything of it because if anybody that's listening to this, if they have a parent that's an addict, you hear things, you just always get prepared when you see certain people's names on your phone. You just prepare for the worst.
Sure. My
aunt actually called me, which was really rare, his sister, and said, your dad got arrested. And I remember exactly where I was. I was at Culver's with my 3-year-old and my husband at the time. And I remember going, oh, okay. And just thinking, like, he'll be out. My grandma will bail him out. Something will happen. He'll be fine. He's been there before, whatever. And I went to bed, didn't think much of it. This was over Memorial Day weekend, I believe, 4 years ago.
Can I just interrupt you a little bit? I want to try to space this story out just a little bit. So you gave us a lot of information to start with. So let me kind of ask you some questions about what you gave me so far, if that's okay.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
So you said that you grew up, your dad had an addictive tendency, whether it was, sounds like drugs more than alcohol, or was it drugs and alcohol?
Actually, it started out alcohol. He was always just a beer and whiskey kind of guy.
Sure.
And, maybe pot.
Okay.
And then
that grew into something obviously more than, and was there a precursor to that? Was there something going on in your life?
Yeah.
Or in what's that?
So early 2000s, I believe. My dates might be mixed up because I was young at the time.
Sure.
He hurt his back, and he got prescribed medications to help him with that.
Sure.
And he got addicted.
Okay.
So the Percocets, all the stuff that he was using, got addicted to those.
I understand.
And yeah, it was just a downward spiral from there. So, and I always say that I preferred my drunk dad.
Sure. let me pry a little more. So,
Sure.
Dad got injured on the job, ended up taking some prescribed medication from the doctors, which
Yes.
then left him addicted to those painkillers, correct? And in his case, you said
Correct.
it was Percocets. Is that correct?
I think it was.
Okay.
I could be wrong. Like I said, I wasn't that close to him.
Sure. Well, I know
We kind of floated in and out of each other's lives.
I know Percocets and Oxycontins are commonly, or at least back then, were commonly prescribed, and both of them have a severe degree of addiction associated with them.
Right.
So I understand. So how did that? You were a teenager, obviously, when he got injured.
Yeah, 2002. So it was before high school, middle school.
Okay. So that obviously, when you're watching all of this and you're growing up during those pivotal years, it really made an impression on you, correct?
For sure. I have specific memories of certain things that I'll never forget. Like certain things that are etched in my mind that him and I have talked about, he feels badly about. I actually saw him overdose. I saved his life at least once. So that was scary as a 18-year-old.
Sure.
And I'm the oldest of 5 brothers, so
how did your mom?
I always took the burden.
How did your mom deal with all of that while you were going through it?
So they got divorced when I was 7, but she was always really supportive. She would always just, talk to me about it. She had her own issues as well that I didn't know about until later.
Okay.
But she was very much, when I found him overdose, she was the first person I called because I didn't know what to do. They had been together since, when I was little. She's probably the person that knew him the best as far as that. So she came over and helped me and made the decision to call the rest of his family, and he sobered up and didn't have to go to the hospital, thank God. But
let me ask a few more questions, then we'll get on. I'll let you kind of continue your story. I just want to get the baseline and the background for you, because it's not as much. As much as this is your dad's story and your experiences, this is really who you are and the things that you've gone through too. And knowing you, I know how unique and special you are, and so I want to know. As I think the people that will listen to this want to know a little bit about who they're listening to. So you have brothers and sisters, right?
Yes, I had brothers.
Okay. And were you the older child, younger child, or in the middle?
I was the oldest, only girl.
Now, when you're going through all that, obviously, Dad's not stepping up to the plate. Mom, was she working or a housewife?
Kind of both at the time. It depends which period in time that you were talking.
Did you find that you ended up stepping up to the parental role for your brothers, being the oldest?
I definitely did. Okay. I definitely did. I had amazing grandparents on my mom's side.
That's great.
They pretty much helped raise me and my brother from that marriage.
Are they still alive?
Without them, I would be the same. They are, yep, and we're still very close.
Shout out to you, Grandma and Grandpa. That's wonderful. So wonderful to hear that. So you obviously kind of stepped up to the plate and had to grow up fast. And
for sure.
You then kind of came to an age where you realized that the relationship with your dad, because of the medication and the addiction that came along with that ended up transferring to other things other than just prescribed medications, right?
I'm sure it did. That's a side that I've never witnessed with him, but sure. I'm sure it did. Okay. They usually go hand in hand, but I can't say from experience what else he used. I just know that he was in the pills and drinking really bad. So. Sure.
Okay. Well, so then when we talk about drugs and alcohol, some people get a connotation of drugs as being, like cocaine or heroin or some crazy extreme stuff. In your case, it was prescribed pills and then alcohol. I think a lot of us Wisconsinites and people across the world can probably relate to that. And then obviously there became a dependency on your dad's part upon the pills and then also the alcohol. How did that affect him? Did he change as a person then? Obviously, you were kind of young at that point.
Yeah. So when he was drinking, I might bounce around a little bit.
No problem.
So I apologize for that. When I was younger, he was mainly a drinker and a pot smoker. And so I had two stepmoms after my mom. He got married 2 more times.
Okay.
So with his second wife, it was very abusive.
Physically or verbally?
A lot of times I remember a lot more physical, but it was both.
Sure.
They were very bad together when they would drink. And I remember one time in particular, we were at Kmart, and back when Kmart was a thing, and they got into a fight. I know. They got into a fight, and it was actually, I believe, around my birthday, because we went to go find me a bike, and all the kids were there, me, my stepsister, my 3 brothers, and he wouldn't let her drive because she was drunk. And he grabbed the keys from her, and somebody at the Dollar Tree thought he hit her. And so when we got back to our house, the cops hauled him away, thinking it was a domestic dispute. So, I mean, I saw stuff like that growing up with the drinking. A lot of times I'd call my mom and have her come pick me up because I was scared or didn't want to be around the drinking.
Sure. It
didn't happen every weekend, but it happened a lot. Or we would just take my brothers and we go to the park up the street and let them hash it out. Okay. Then when I got to be older, I kind of distanced myself with him.
Okay.
With the pills and stuff, I just didn't want to be around it. And
so I know you said Dad went away about 4 years ago.
Yes.
How long was he dealing with the addiction previous to the incarceration then?
With the pills?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. The pills.
Oh, gosh. Well, it's 2020 now. He went away in 2016. So probably 14 years just with the pills, I think. I would have to say at least I remember.
Was it a problem through that whole 14 years, or was there periods of it?
I would say it was, yeah. And the drinking, I don't remember him never not drinking.
And how did that
There's a history of alcoholism in my family, so It's just a cultural thing for my family. Sure.
I have a lot of friends that are very much like that, along with my own flesh and blood, so I can relate to that.
Right.
So how did that affect, obviously, after the accident, Mom and Dad separated and got divorced. Dad picked up an issue with the pills that he was prescribed due to the injuries that he sustained while working. Couldn't kick that. How did that affect his work? How did that affect him as being a parent? And how did that affect him as a person that you were able to at least watch from the outside in as this happened? Knowing especially it's been over 14 years. Some of it was while you were a child still. A lot of it was when you were an adult.
Yeah, for sure. So there were times when I was younger, like right after my parents separated in 97, where I remember him working on his cars, working in his tool shed, doing stuff with us, going fishing, stuff like that. We'd grill out a lot. And then after the pills got to be really bad, he really didn't do much of anything because he couldn't move. So, a lot of the memories that I have of him his last 3 years before going away is him sitting on the couch watching TV or coming to stuff and looking just horrible. Mm-hmm. Like my wedding pictures, I look at him and I just, he looks so unhappy. I look back on it and it's just really sad to think about because you don't want to think of your parents being sad and in pain. But so yeah, he definitely, his motivation wasn't there anymore.
Sure. It's, I would think that my experience with painkillers, they made me sick. I can't take them. I typically don't really like the way they make me feel. If it's not making me nauseous, it's making me really woozy and just out of it.
Yeah.
I always feel like I'm in a fog. So I can understand how that perpetuates other issues too, and it's hard to deal with those cognitively and in the moment when you're in that fog. So
right.
You've watched your dad go through a ton of stuff. Was he able to hold on to his job? Did he lose that? How is he stability-wise?
No, he actually lost it because he couldn't move. He couldn't bend his back. He could barely sit down for long periods of time. He was a truck driver.
Okay. Did
so
he get
that was an option.
Or was there any kind of...
I don't think he ever got it. I'm not positive. I know he didn't because my family and I were telling him he needs to go for it, and he kept getting declined, or I'm not sure
right.
what happened with all of that, but... No.
It's frustrating being an injured person and then having to be your own advocate as you both try to get care. And if you're in a situation where you need to represent yourself legally, it's difficult. I've shared things with you and also the listeners and other casts that really kind of go into depth on some of the stuff that I've already done. So we don't need to bring that up here, but I sympathize. It's not easy. So
No.
what was kind of the wedge that drove you and your dad apart when the family kind of lost that family dynamic where dad wasn't dad anymore?
We really weren't ever that daughter-father relationship that everybody sees with or wants with their dad. It was never... I guess when I was little, I'm told that we were very close. My mom used to work, my dad would stay home with me, and I was a daddy's girl.
Sure.
I do have slight memories about that. And my dad has always loved me and has always been would kiss me goodnight, always tells me he loves me.
Mm-hmm.
That way. That was never an issue. I always knew he loved me. But we definitely were not as close as I would have wanted to be growing up because of the addiction and because I just knew Dad. I go to Dad's for the weekend, and I would pretty much play with my step siblings and my brothers, and we had to because the court said we had to, so we go by Dad's, and that's what we did.
Right.
But it's
Structured.
funny because now, yeah, it's a structured thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Not that I didn't want to. It was just I was a kid. I didn't know any different. It's just who my dad was. So.
But you were going to say, but now?
But now, with him being incarcerated, it's funny because with him being apart for 4 years,
mm-hmm.
we're closer than we ever have been because he's sober. And yeah, I can't physically see him, but I can have a relationship with him via phone, via letter. I can talk with him like I can't a lot of people in my life because him and I are we're very similar in certain ways. I've never really dealt with an addiction issue that way.
Mm-hmm.
I've always been real careful, but him and I we're more similar than we think as far as emotions and how we see the world.
Let me hit the pause button, and we'll get back to what you're talking about right now. What brought your dad to the point where he got in trouble? Share what you will, keep the rest to yourself, but give us an insight. What were the circumstances or descriptions so that we can understand why Dad ended up doing 14 years, or was it 12 years or 14? I apologize.
I think it's 12 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't remember if it was dropping out of 9. I forget. So he always has had a thing where he wants to help other people before he helps himself.
Mm-hmm.
He has the kind of relationship with people. Like, he would take the shirt off his back for you if he saw you didn't have one and you were on the street.
Sure.
But he'll also be the one standing there without a shirt in the street
right.
while it's pouring rain, and then he's like, fuck.
He helps to his own detriment sometimes.
Yes, he overhelps, and that's where, and he didn't listen to us. You don't have certain people in your circle.
Right.
And I think that's where he got mixed up with the wrong people, made some wrong choices, and that kind of escalated, and he got caught.
It reminds me of something my grandmother used to say: if you roll around with dogs, you wake up with fleas, right? So if you have the wrong type of friends around you, you can all of a sudden experience a lot of trouble in your life. And the only reason I draw a point to that is that I think that what you're explaining is a lesson that if you can learn it without experiencing it, anybody that's listening, you're 10 times further ahead. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
So, like, for example, my daughter Grace, she was probably like 2.5, mm-hmm. and he called me one day, and he was trying to get sober. This is like right before all of this happened. And he calls me and he said, Heather, I have to tell you something. And I said, what did you do? And he said, you can't be mad at me. You can't take Grace away from me. And I said, Dad, I will not take Grace from you ever. You will do that. I said, what the fuck did you do? He said, I got my 3rd OWI. And I was like, well, that was stupid. And he said, yeah, I was just trying to drive somebody to Cascade, and I took some NyQuil before I went, and who knows what else happened.
Sure.
But he got caught driving under the influence, and he was with some not so great people. And, yep. And he only told me because he knew I'd see it in the paper.
Sure.
And he knew he was trying. But just stuff like that. It's like, oh, my gosh, Dad, what?
So is that what put him in jail for 14 years?
No.
I was going to say that seems pretty excessive for a third.
No, he, now before I tell you what he did, no, he was never feely touchy with me ever.
Sure.
Never with my stepsister. Never, ever, ever got that. My dad's a lot of things, but I feel like he's not a sexual predator.
Okay.
I can say that confidently. But he got for child enticement and drugs.
I apologize. You broke up when you said that. Say that more.
Okay. Child enticement and drug charges.
Okay. All right. So then he obviously had a trial, and how did that affect? Did you guys get closer during that time? Were you kind of wanting to just be a spectator to find out what was going to happen and what happened, and just kind of wait and be cautious? What was your approach to all that?
So when I found out he went to jail, he sat in the county jail for probably a year or two. I forget exactly. I think it was closer to 2 years because I was pregnant with my second daughter, and I would make the trip from Ozaki County down to Sheboygan County to see him every couple weeks.
Okay. So through that whole tenure of sitting, you made your way to see your dad every couple weeks, right?
Yeah.
While being
every
pregnant,
couple weeks, but I didn't talk to him for 2 months.
Okay.
Because I was so pissed.
So you would go there and sit, but you wouldn't talk to him?
Well, before I would go visit him.
Okay.
I didn't answer the phone from him. I didn't write him letters. My aunt told me what happened when he got, the day he got carried away by the police. And I was like, nope, I'm done. I'm so done. I don't even care anymore. He's not putting me through this or my kids. I will be damned if my kids get dragged through this. So
can I ask you this?
Being a protective mom. What was that?
So can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Regardless of whether, he was obviously convicted, but do you feel that he was guilty? What happened? Is it speculative, or it happened and you've come to terms with that, but that's, I guess, you know what I'm trying to ask?
Right. So here's the thing. I know everybody thinks, oh, he's your dad, you're going to say everything you can to protect him, and you're naive.
I'm not like that.
Honestly,
I say the way it is?
I've gone up and down on this. So at first I thought, well, that was stupid. What an idiot. What a fucking idiot. I got so mad, and that's why I wouldn't talk to him. Mm-hmm. But the more I thought about it, the more I talked to the family. I looked at the actual packet that the police report. We talked to his lawyer. We all got together and talked, and after I talked to my dad, I don't think he did exactly what the girl's accusing him of.
Okay.
I think that there was a lot more involved in the story, and it included drugs. Sure. And I think this particular person was pissed because she was cut off.
Okay.
And to make my dad pay, I think she maybe made up some stuff.
Gotcha.
However, you never really know with people, so I can't say he didn't do it. If he was using, people do weird things when they're using. So the dad I know wouldn't have.
But regardless of all that, putting yourself in a situation with what sounds like a minor and drugs was still, regardless of what happened, super inappropriate. So
yeah. Oh yeah. He put himself in that position, and we told him that for years.
Right.
You can't be hanging out with your kids' friends.
Right.
This isn't going to work. You need to stop having kids hang out at your house. You need to stop hanging out with a certain crowd.
Right.
And you need to stop being nice to people because they aren't nice to you. You always take the fall for everybody.
No, I think I understand in how you're talking about it. It sounds to me like this guy is just Mr. Nice Guy. He likes to party, drinks too much, but that's the way his family is, right? Gives the shirt off his back to anyone, just wants to be like that guy that everybody loves and likes, right? And if that means, with his kids' friends, being that guy that hooks everybody up, or whatever, and I can easily see that going into really bad areas real quick.
It got to be very gray. Yeah.
So I think, did I nail that pretty good on what you were trying to tell me?
Yeah.
Okay.
For sure.
So I can understand where you're at on everything. And I also understand, obviously the history that you are bringing it with it now. So I appreciate you letting me ask those questions. So Dad's been incarcerated now. You guys were visiting. You were going there every 2 weeks while you're pregnant, going through all the things of what you're going through as a new mom and being pregnant and all the things that go along with that. You and Dad get closer. Yes.
Yeah, we started to get a little closer. Once he was in the county jail and I would visit a little bit more consistently.
What kind of change did you see now that he's not able to take the drug or the pills the way that he was? Was there a complete change in personality?
I would say he's not as irritable. He's an anxious person to begin with.
Okay.
He's like me like that. But,
sure.
Or I'm like him, I should say. But he's not as irritable. There's a difference between anxious and irritable and then being anxious and irritable on medications or prescription drugs or alcohol.
Right.
I think we all know the difference between the two.
Right.
I feel like when I talk to him now, he has good days and he has bad days. When he called yesterday, I talked to him once a week. And he was having a bad day because nobody was answering their phones. My brothers were busy. I hadn't answered my phone in 2 weeks because of timing, because they can only call you. You can't call them. A lot of people don't realize that.
It's expensive too, isn't it?
Very expensive. And actually, I, being out of work now, don't have money to put on his books. So they've been giving every person in the prison system like one phone call a week free because of the pandemic.
Sure.
So he's been using that to call me.
How long does that phone call allowed to last?
15 minutes.
So 15 minutes once a week, you can talk to one person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
One of the things that I have, I don't want to get into a tangent on it, but one of the things that I've noticed in my 46 years is the big business behind the prison system and the jail system.
Oh, for sure.
And how
it's insane.
Well, it's also very interesting.
It's for profit.
It's very much for profit.
And they profit off families, let me tell you, because the prisoners aren't making anything
right
when they have jobs in there.
Just so that our listeners can hear, what does it cost per minute or for a 15-minute conversation with your father?
So I want to say we found a way to make it cheaper because I was using a Google Voice number.
What did it start out being?
I can't even remember. I should have these stats, right? It's been so long. I think it cost me 20 cents a minute.
Okay. So 20 cents a minute?
And that's pretty cheap. Sure. If I put $100 on or $50 on, it'll last me a while. But then my dad will call me a lot. Mm-hmm. And then, that time is...
It gets eaten
every
up.
time I answer, it's
right.
time that which is fine. I love my dad. I want to talk with him and keep him a part of my life and his grandchildren's life as much as possible. And, but yeah, it's very expensive. And then he calls and says, I need new underwear. I need new socks. A lot of people don't realize they only give you the basics in prison. So when he got there, if we wouldn't have put money on his books or ordered him stuff out of the catalogs that they select,
sure,
he has a top, a bottom. I think he has like some Croc-like sandals and a basic toothbrush. They don't even give him like shampoo and body soap, I don't believe. Wow. Maybe body soap, but no shampoo. My dad has got very long hair. Mm-hmm. So he's always complaining he needs shampoo or conditioner. And my family and I sometimes will just do it for him. And sometimes we're like, dude, you're on your own. Like, there's a pandemic out there. Like, I don't know what to tell you. We're out of work. So he's kind of got to learn how to get creative.
Right. Now, what's your dad's background? You're mixed, right? Like, I feel like your parents
Oh, German all the way.
German all the way? Okay.
German all the way. Both white parents.
What prison system is he in? Green Bay or where is he at?
He's Red Granite.
Okay. No
So
idea.
that's a medium security.
Okay. Medium security, is that a lot less? I guess I don't have a lot of experience within that realm. What's the difference between like maximum, medium, and low?
I've never done research on that, but I just think of it as a scary levels. Like, versus the criminals aren't that bad.
Sure.
Second level, you got murderers in there. Third level, you got the hardcore criminals.
Sure.
My dad is bunking with and eating next to murderers and child molesters, and yeah, I mean, he makes it sound like it's not a big deal that he's the scariest looking guy in there. But it's still scary knowing your dad is with people that have killed people in cold blood.
Right. Well, what's he shared with you? This is his first time in prison?
Yes, he's been to jail in and out his whole life. Prison, it's his first time.
Jail is obviously different than prison.
It is. He told me that he preferred doing prison time over the county jail.
Oh.
County jail is horrible to be in. You ask anybody that's been there or worked there, it's horrible.
Okay.
So he's happy where he is, considering if he had to choose. But
okay, maybe a little bit more freedom and not as much. For
sure. Yep, they have a weight room there. That's certain hours that you can go to. I think a library. They have rec hours.
Do they have access to? And this sounds stupid. I sure know the answer to this, and I probably do. It's probably no. But they're not allowed to have like an iPad or anything to. I mean, do they have?
I'm not
internet?
sure. I know my dad had said that they can have privileges for some sort of emailing system.
Okay.
But we have to put money on that. And I don't think we have yet.
Sure.
My family and I work together. I mean, he has his sister and his dad and his mom.
There's so many
me,
free
my cousin.
services, like even Facebook Messenger, but I would assume that, depending on the security level of the prison, no one's allowed to do that kind of thing, unless maybe you have rec time or I don't know. Right.
I'm not really sure how that works. Kind of has his things he does. He
I can't
learned to play
imagine
guitar
being without like my iPad or like, you know what I mean? Like, because I'm so tied to my digital world. So
I know, and he doesn't even know half of what's going on here. When we tell him, he's like, "That's crazy." But he's got a TV in his room. He's one of the lucky ones because my aunt bought him that.
Oh, very nice.
He's got headphones. He's got an alarm clock because he kept getting in trouble because he wouldn't hear count, and then he'd have to go to the hole. Which the hole is a solitary confinement for those that don't know.
Okay.
So we ended up getting him an alarm clock because he was sleeping through count.
So this kind of brings us up to date to where we were, and I put you on pause before. So Dad's now gone through the trial, was convicted, got sentenced to 12 years. You guys have been visiting. Now he's gotten set up with the help of family in prison. He's off of the pills. He's off the alcohol. But yet he's spunking next to murderers and rapists and pedophiles and all sorts of horrible people. And it's difficult for him to reach out to family. How does that affect him mentally? And how has he been able to survive? I mean, he's at basically a third of the way through right now. So he's still got, another 8 years. How is he holding up after 4? And how has that affected your relationship? What is it like now that you've bonded through the trial and now you're kind of talking regularly, and you're closer than ever? I think you told me earlier. So what is the relationship dynamics like? And when you see him getting close to getting out, do you see him being able to adjust successfully, or what are the trials, that are setting ahead of you? Sure.
So there was a lot there. So let me see if I get it all here.
Sure, I apologize.
If I don't answer your whole question, just go back.
Yeah,
so the relationship now is I'm very happy with how close we are, but it's very hard for me. I'm going to try not to get emotional.
No,
it's very hard for me right now because since he's gone in, I've had another daughter, so he has 2 granddaughters. He's never met the second one. She'll be 3 in July. And I'm currently going through a divorce. So my dad, to not have him here is the hardest year of my life.
Kind of when you need him the most, too, kind of thing.
Really, yes, really sucks. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Some days I sit here and cry because I just want my dad. I have my mom, but my dad and I are more similar in how we see the world. I think I said that. So it just doesn't, the 15-minute call, even if you pay for it, they cut them off at 15 minutes. So if I'm having a bad day, I can't call my dad. I got to hope he's going to call me, or I have to wait 7 days to talk to him.
Right.
So it just sucks. And my oldest daughter remembers him because I keep him a part of their lives. He's very good at drawing, so he draws them cards and writes them letters. And when I was with my kids' dad, we lived in the same house, he would call the phone and talk to the kids. So yeah, it's
got to make you feel good. It's got to, well, I mean, in that aspect, it's got to make you feel good because he's as sober as he ever was. And he's really making a solid effort to try to have a relationship with his family. And you can tell that by the efforts especially with the grandchildren and things. I find that, the proof is in the pudding, or, actions speak louder than words. So when you see all those little efforts, especially when you take the time to draw and be creative and express that love, while you're in an environment like that, I think that speaks wonders. So I like your dad. If he hears this, kudos, sir. hang in there, buddy.
And so I talked to my girls about their grandpa, and I'm told that my youngest is just like my dad when he was little. That's what his family says. Sure. Just crazy. She's got the curls like he does. And that makes me feel like a piece of my dad is with me at all times.
Awesome.
So that feels good that I could at least hand that down genetically, even though she's crazy.
Yeah. Now, do you feel that the environment that he's in with the people that he's serving, is it rough over there? Is it something that, I always watch, the stuff on TV and
like the Locked Up series.
Yeah, someone's dying every other, So, is it something where it's not as bad as what the movies portray? Has he expressed his experiences in that aspect?
He has. I would always joke with him, and I don't know if this is appropriate. When he first got in, I'd be like, "How is it, Dad?" And he's like, "What do you mean, how is it? How do you think it is?" And I'd say, "Well, don't drop your rope soap." And he'd be like, "Oh, shut up." So since all of him going into the prison system, he jokes. At first I worried about it, and he joked, and he'll pretty much keep his mouth shut unless he thinks he needs to open it. Mm-hmm. And so he's one of the older guys in there. My dad's in what's my dad? 50 maybe.
Okay.
And he's got long hair, down to his butt. Apparently he's got the ZZ Top thing going on right now where his beard's all the way down to his chest. And he's got tattoos all over his arms. He's just a guy that you see and you don't want to fuck with.
Sure.
So I think that helps.
Sure.
But he is honestly like a big teddy bear. But if he would stand up for himself if somebody crossed him, but it's just not worth it.
Don't make him out to be too much of a softie, just in case any of his...
I know, right? But no,
he's a supposer. Let's grab him.
A lot of the guys he talks to are younger guys, and he's just said, they're idiots. They're young. He said they're dumb fucks. They're young dumb fucks, and he's younger. He's like, they don't know nothing.
Right.
So, no, sometimes it scares me, but...
How do your daughters know him as Grandpa? Do they know who he is? He obviously talks to them a lot. He hasn't been able to physically see them, though. Is there any way of video messaging or being able to have that kind of face-to-face while he's over there? I
don't believe so, and because of his crime, because of their age,
Yeah, so there's got to be restrictions.
They've never been able to come with me.
Sure.
However, Grace, my oldest, knows him as Grandpa Darren.
Okay.
So that's good. She knows him. I have pictures of him and her together. My youngest does not know him, and she's young. She'll be 3 in July. We'll say, look, it's Grandpa. She'll be, hi, Grandpa, on the phone.
Right.
But he's like, she don't know me. He did meet her one time. It was during his sentencing. My ex-husband went into the hallway at the Sheboygan County Courthouse and had her. She was probably a few months old at the time because she was fussy. And apparently my dad was shackled up, and he walked by her within like a few inches. He could have reached out and touched her. And he looked at the guard and said, can I say hi to my new granddaughter? And they said, nope, keep walking. So he got to see her.
Right. Well,
and also some pictures. But
yeah. Well, and it's ironic that he was able, everything happens for a reason. So, even though he wasn't able to touch, the fact that you were in that close of proximity, it gave him the opportunity to actually physically be in the room and see her.
Right.
And I think that, given the situation,
and I'll send
as much as
photos.
he could have wanted or asked for. Yeah.
I'll send photos, but I believe you can only have like 50 at a time.
Sure.
And we have a photo album for him. And then I worry because I don't want him putting it on the wall because I don't know who else is looking at these photos.
Sure.
I don't want some sex-deprived man to be looking at my child, and be into that sort of thing.
As we talk, it sounds, you would ask me because you wanted to talk about how this affects family and relationships and the dynamics of all of this. It sounds to me like one of the biggest problems that we have with incarceration and the families that are affected, both victims as well as the person incarcerated, is keeping those relationships. I think it's good for mental health, not only for the prisoner, but also for that prisoner's family. At the end of the day, when someone's put away and you make things 10 times worse by cutting off a lot of these healthy avenues, and those healthy avenues promote constructive improvements in the person, I would assume, rather than feeding the negativity and the despair and the anguish that goes along with that, and then you isolate them from it, so they feel alone. And
I can't imagine.
I don't think that this idea of punishment and serving our time doesn't mean that we need to make it as inhospitable as possible for these people. The isolation and being away from your family and being able to walk outside. I mean, as we've been quarantined for the last, 7-8 weeks, like I have been going nuts, I mean, I
told my dad it feels like prison.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, whatever.
It's about mental health, and it's important to not make an inmate worse mentally because you cut off their entire support network and emotional network. How do these people get through if they have no one and you've just destroyed their life on top of being sentenced to 12 years? We don't.
And how many families come from poverty? I mean, if he didn't have family that was willing to stick with him and had jobs that could support this, we wouldn't be talking to him. We would be sending letters, and even that costs a stamp. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot for the families.
I see room for improvement, especially in this age of technology, where we could easily set up even some kind of video chat that is offered through the prison, that they maybe have a company or a service that you can pay them, right? But instead of just being a little phone call or whatever, I mean, in this day and age...
Because that's what we're doing on the phone. They have a third-party phone operator that they use for the prison systems. Why not do it for video chatting?
I agree.
We're in the, 2020.
Well, in these days, it's real easy to pull up several people that are conferencing a call, because obviously these are large networks, so there's going to be a large volume of these people. But if we're paying for it and we're doing it in a way that, not only is it voice, but you're physically staying connected. You're growing old with the person, maybe not in the same room, but at least you can see them every single day. And you're like, oh, look at that gray hair coming in. Or, hey, look at those wrinkles. 12 years is a long time. And on the flip side of that is, look at my granddaughter as a baby. Look at my granddaughter as she grew up every single time that I was able to talk.
Hey, Dad, I'm pregnant. Not over the, telephone. Or, hey, Dad, I'm getting divorced. That sucks to do over the...
I think that we are paying a price already that's quite high to talk to the individual. It would not cost anything and probably save everyone money just to make it digital and have a video conference experience, being able to see someone rather than just imagining with your mind who that person is after 12 years. So I don't know. Hard it just gives an extra tangible way of connecting. I think that's important.
Right. Well, I do have to say, since he's been in, he has done some amazing things. He finished his HSED and says he wants to go to culinary school, which I believe they have at Red Granite. Don't quote me on that. He has a job that he does where he gets paid minimal, but, it's still a job. Mm-hmm. He's learned a guitar. He actually got to play with a guy that used to work with Zach Wilde, I guess.
Oh, wow.
The band Zach Wilde. So he's learning guitar from that guy.
I have a picture with him, actually. Well, I don't know him well, but
cool.
I have great stories with that. Anyways, go ahead.
I think he said Zach Wilde.
Yeah.
I think that's who.
Guitars for Ozzy Osbourne and Black Label Society.
Yeah.
Yep.
So somebody that used to play for one of those bands taught him how to play guitar.
No More Tears.
Yes, of course.
That's him wailing away on the guitar. He's amazing. Zach, if you hear this, bro, do you remember that time when we hung out over at the pizza place and we bought you dinner and drinks and I met you next door to Liquor Town?
You met Zach Wilde?
Yeah, that's cool. Where I got all the pictures from. So I met him. His tour bus came through. He went to, I think it was 2009.
That's amazing. I'm telling my dad that.
So they have in Madison what's called band camp, and his band Black Label Society came and played. He also is still in Ozzy's band, but only plays when he tours and new stuff.
Sure.
His bus was leaving out of town, and I was working that night, so I didn't get to go to band camp. I was working my second job, delivering pizza for this place. They were like an Italian restaurant, so it was like pizza and pasta and whatever. And right next door was Liquor Town, and their tour bus had just pulled in as I got done with the delivery, and I was pulling back into the restaurant, and I'm like, oh my God, it's fucking, Black Label Society.
Nice.
And I play guitar, so like I had to go in and like, because Zach Wilde is like literally one of my heroes, my guitar heroes. So went into Liquor Town. I'm like, dude, I'm a huge fan. Could I please have my picture with you? He's like, sure. And fucking flipped off the camera. And we were both flipping out the camera and talked to the band a little bit. And one of them said he was hungry. And I'm like, dude, I work next door. And like, let me hook you guys up. We'll shut down. There's nobody over there. So the whole band came over and chowed down and drank with the owner and me. And then we sent them on their way. It was Picasso's. Yeah, I think it was Picasso's Pizza in Madison. So anyways, it was like the best hour and a half of my life.
That's awesome. How can you beat that?
The crazy thing is like as sociable and talking as I can be. I barely said a word because everything he talked about was football and like all these football greats that had like gone on the tour bus and like partied with him and the band and blah, 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 blah. And it was great hearing the stories, but at least my owner of the restaurant was able to like go back and forth because his name was Chad and he literally knew everything about football. So it was just fun to hang out with them and just have that experience. Anyways, so Dad's, I digress, got pulled into a different direction there. Dad's hanging out with Zach Wilde's buddy. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so he's learned how to do that. He's always been a really great artist, so this just has given him time to really get better.
Sure.
So he'll draw pictures for my girls and cards for people. Again, that all costs money.
Right.
So a lot of times we have to supply it, but I'll do that for my kids if that's the thing that my kids get from him. So
one thing I was liking that you were telling me are all these really creative things that they can get involved with, like culinary school or get your HSED or, things to further yourself. Like, that's amazing. But then there's that flip side where everything costs money. Right. And so it's the parents and the family. But what about people? And I think of myself, because I was an orphan. Like, I don't have family that's going to come to my aid if, like, I ever got in trouble or something like that. What about the other people that are out there that families either turned their back or they just didn't have the family? There's opportunities for them to make money in the prison system, although I know it's not a lot. Not much. Right. So
it's like 25 cents an hour or something crazy, because commissary is super cheap there and what they buy. I don't know. I think there needs to be some kind of rationale. It doesn't need to be milking. I feel like the incarcerated become cows that the government and the states and the system just start to milk, and everybody that's tied to them, their family, their kids, and they bring it to a level that, looking at other countries. Now, I'm not saying that we're the best, or the worst, but I'm not saying that. I'm saying that there's other examples, if we take a look outside of our own nation, that have a much healthier way of rehabilitating.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Sorry, guys.
That's what we should be doing, right?
Right,
correctional
exactly.
But to be honest, my dad has told me things, and I don't know if it's all prisons, but he's told me the other day, when I get up, I get dizzy. I all of a sudden get dizzy, like I'm gonna pass out. He's like, I don't know if it's my new medication or what. And I said, well, you should probably talk to the doctor about that. And most of the time he'll say, fuck that. You know what it's like to try to get into the doctor? And even then they don't listen to me. He's like, Heather, you could be on the floor having a heart attack, and by the time they get you medical attention, you'd be dead.
Sure.
Nobody cares around here. You're just one less mouth to feed, according to them. So that's how it is.
Yeah.
From the words of a prisoner. It's sad, because that isn't just a prisoner. That's my dad. That's somebody's son. That's somebody's grandfather.
Right.
So it's very hard.
So what I hear in my head are some of those people that be like, well, he shouldn't have done what he done then, But
I agree. But he's still a human.
Well, not only that, but if we look at it a little further, look at how many people are in there that shouldn't be, right? Because it becomes this revolving door of money between incarcerating our own people for ridiculous things. I remember hearing when I was younger, I'm not sure if this quote still holds true, but 60% of our prison population was in there for marijuana related offenses.
I know.
60 fucking percent.
I know.
So thank God it started to legalize, in these certain states. But we've had these invisible traps that our elites know exist, but they're in place for a reason, right? And they evolve.
We have a long way to go.
Well, they become their own sub-economies within the economy, right?
Right.
And that's what the system is. It's a sub-economy within our own economy, and that's the entity that's bleeding us fucking dry, and
right.
And they put us in jail oftentimes for ridiculous things. Not everyone. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot of people that deserve to be there. But if they're going to go, there's only a small percentage that I truly believe that are not rehabilitatable, right?
Right.
Most
a lot of
them,
time.
if you had the right structure, are going to be able to
Right.
but if you take away their support structure and you isolate them and you...
Well, they're reasons for living.
Right. You end up coming out worse than when you went in.
Somebody's committed suicide in the prison or at the jail, or not at the jail, the prison that my dad was at.
Do you ever worry about that with your dad?
Oh, yeah. What the hell? What was that?
So during this time, have you ever worried about that with him?
Yeah. Not with my dad. My dad's a tough cookie, and he's got a good support system, but honestly, I do worry when he gets out, because he'll be older. His kids are all be grown up. Since he's been in prison, he's had 2 grandchildren born by 2 of his children. He's had a daughter get divorced, a son get married, and his parents might not be around in 10 more years.
Right.
And he says that a lot. He worries about that. His sister is really close with him. I'm really close with him. But what happens when he gets out and has a felony on his record? And he never did anything before this. He never had a degree. He never had, you know what I mean? He did all the hard labor jobs that you can get without a high school.
What was his background? What did he do before he went in?
Truck driving.
So just driving on the road?
He used to work at Wilderness. Yeah. Okay. Pretty much dabbled here and there.
No, hey, I know a lot of really successful truck drivers. Well, I shouldn't say a lot, but a few.
Yeah.
So I respect
it can be a good career to get into, but I just don't know who's going to hire him with a felony.
Right.
And I guess that scares me, being his daughter. Like, are you going to use again? Is it going to make you feel hopeless? Are you going to use again? How are you going to rent an apartment? How are you going to be around your potential granddaughters as teenagers when you have that on your record?
Do you worry? I mean, so I guess I pick up that you don't necessarily buy into what his charges were, that they were kind of overinflated. We haven't really touched on it.
I think they're overinflated.
But so yeah. They're truly in... I hate to say it, but anybody that's listening might disagree. But I think that your own flesh and blood typically knows. But then with that said, I have said that, well, maybe they're just, because they're the ones that are closest, it's hard to see it. You know what I mean? It's hard to see sometimes when you're right next to it.
Stupid decisions, but I don't think he did the full on what they're accusing him of doing, especially with a back problem where he could barely bend down.
Gotcha.
So there's that, but I worry.
Because, I mean, if he gets out and stuff, and then, you know, maybe he needs a place to stay. He's going to want to stay with his daughter, you know, I would, you know, like how, but if that's the way you look at it, then you're not going to worry about that. I don't worry about his grandbabies. I just want him to be sober. Yeah. Do you think he'll be able to hold on to that as after?
I hope so. To be honest, he's never known a world without substance abuse, but being away for 12 years can do a number on people.
No, absolutely. How?
I just hope he's rehabilitated enough.
How does he talk about it? Does he say, "Oh, I miss it," or does he like the new sober? What's his? Can I ask like his first name or no names or?
Yeah, Darren.
Okay, Darren. Sorry, I think you said that early on.
No, you're fine.
So, go ahead.
So he's proud that he's, you know, sober and that he got his GSED, HSED. I haven't seen him happier than when he was telling me about some of these tests that he like aced, and it was just really cute seeing my dad all excited about the tests that he's rocked, and that gave him some confidence I've never seen in him. He needs to be rewarded. He needs to look forward to something. He needs to be praised for the things he's doing well, because I don't see enough of that.
Yeah, no.
Right.
And that's the best way to keep that behavior, is to positively reinforce it, right?
Yeah. And I remember when he was sentenced, I'm the only one that went up there and talked about the dad that I knew, the Darren that I knew. Mm-hmm. And she, when she said her sentencing said, I'm sorry it took you 50 years to figure out how to be come to your senses and become a good member of society, but a little too late.
Right.
And she sentenced him, and that was that. But there's got to be more than just sentencing somebody that has a long track record. Like, you have to fix the problem and fix the person.
Right.
You can't just, it's like grounding a child, sticking them in their room, and then expecting them to understand and fix the problem.
Right.
Sometimes people need the guidance and need other things along the way to help with their process.
I definitely agree with that. So going forward, is there anything that we haven't covered that you want to cover?
Maybe just about how it's affected my family on that side and our relationships with each other.
Yeah.
So I feel like I'm closer with my dad's side than I ever have been before. However, it also has drawn me away from certain people.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the second or third Christmas in a row that I did not make it to his dad's house because my dad was not there. And so that for me is very hard.
Sure.
I'm not super close to my grandpa on that side. So that made it all the harder. I think I went 1 year after he was incarcerated, and I said, this sucks. I'm not doing this again.
Do you have a big family or
you
a
just
small
feel like
family?
you're that. What was that?
So do you have a large family or a smaller family?
Smaller-ish. I have I have a step grandma, so she has her kids too, so it can be kind of large now when we have our kids.
Sure.
But it becomes hard because you start to feel like you're that kid, even though you're an adult.
Sure.
You're that felon's kid, or you're the black sheep's kid. Like.
Did you hear my
I didn't
podcast
fuck
about
up.
being that foster kid? I totally can relate to what you're saying. It's that stigma. It's that label.
Not that they've ever said that. I just feel like sometimes it is like that.
Well, yeah, and then people treat you differently, right? Like automatically, all of a sudden they treat you differently. And
it's just that side. It's not like his sister. It's not my cousin on that side. My cousin's on that side.
Mm-hmm.
It's just when I go and everybody's mixed together at Christmas, the different families, the different dynamics.
Yeah.
I just can't do it. I can't do it. It's too hard for me. So I choose not to anymore. As far as his sister, who he is super close with, she made she made a vow to like watch over me when he went away.
Oh, what
I found this out later. Yeah, so she does sometimes. She'll be like, Heather, what are you doing? Why aren't you answering my calls? And then I actually just moved out of my cousin's house. I was staying with her during my divorce process. Just moved out, got my own place, and we're super close. That's his niece. So, yeah. So she and I talk a lot about it. Her dad has been incarcerated in the prison system a lot.
Yeah.
So she, out of anybody in the family, understands.
How's your mom? Does she just kind of keep closed door on that?
I asked her that once. I said, how does this not bother you? She said, Heather, I've been divorced from your dad for I forget how many years it was at that point. She said, your dad and I are not the same people we were when we were that age, when we were young and we're together. I don't even know your dad anymore.
Right.
She's like, I care about him because you're his child, but, he makes his mistakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he made his mistakes, and that's part of the reason they got divorced. They weren't good together anymore. So everybody's on their own path, and
is she doing
I guess
well,
I'll find out what that's like.
Has she turned out
She is.
happy and healthy?
Yes, she is sober, great, and getting married in a month, and yeah, she's great.
And how are you?
There are days where I miss my dad, but it's kind of a weird feeling because then I think like, whoa, it's weird. I miss my dad. Like, I don't have that daddy relationship. Why do I miss him? Mm-hmm. And then I think about it and just think, if he was here, I could at least go to his house now that I live in the same community that he grew up in. Right. Because I wasn't for a long time. I lived in the next county over. And so I couldn't just drop by his house. I crave that. I want my dad around, especially now that I'm going through a divorce. Now that I have 2 kids, now that I'm, an adult and going through life, because he'll tell me things on the phone like, give me little tips on stuff, or be like, yeah, Heather, I told you that from day one,
Right.
Do you. He'll always say, do you. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. So I miss that, I guess. I miss what I never had until I was over the phone.
Well, and the hope is that it continues to grow, and the hope is that when he's out, it stays. We all have a journey in life, and there's only so much we can control. It's so hard to kind of mow your own path when you can't control the person next to you, So kind of like with your parents, you either grow together or you grow apart. And the idea is just to grow. And I think as long as we all consciously try to be the best that we can be on a daily basis and live by a couple simple things, right? All those religions out there try to explain basically the same fundamentals. It's how do we all live together, and how can we support one another? And those strings, those invisible network ties of love and family, when you cut them and you sever them completely when you get incarcerated, it does a number on someone mentally. And the idea of prison, typically, unless it's a life sentence, is you're going to be rehabilitated. And when we're doing the severing, it's causing more damage than it's rehabilitating. And so I think there's some fixes, and if they want to still make their flipping money, because that's the way the system is, no one's going to change that, unfortunately. But then at least provide a service that's going to maintain the mental support networks, those positive, healthy reinforcements of change, and keep these families connected. Because by severing and by disconnecting and just trying to focus on the money and the big business of it, these people are doing so much more harm. So I want to thank you for being on my podcast.
Thank you for having me.
It was my pleasure. I enjoyed your story, and I hope that I hope everybody out there that listened to this did as well. I think that there's lessons to be learned, and there's changes to be made in the system, and any organization or any movement that we can support in whatever way that facilitates these changes to create a more healthy environment mentally for these people during their rehabilitation, we should support that, and our listeners should support that, because that's the idea of doing time. It's not doing life, it's doing time. It's to try to come out hopefully rehabilitated and better than when we supposedly went in. And how are you going to do that if we don't facilitate a healthy environment and you cut off everyone's networks? So, all right, sweetheart, I love you. You have yourself a great night, and thank you so much for being a part of my podcast.
All right, thanks, Cole.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.
Oh, I want to thank Heather. The idea of incarceration, a lot of people focus on the punishment and the vengeance and the just desserts. The idea really is we need to rehabilitate these people. We need to provide an atmosphere that's not going to damage them even more, so when they come out, they're worse than when they went in. I think our system is doing a lot of great things, providing a lot of outlets for people to grow if they apply themselves in prison. But we need to focus on not severing these ties and keeping these families together. I want to thank everybody for listening. You guys be safe and have a great night.